Okay, we are back. Dynasty Saturday Night 5, Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast on the Going for Two Live Network. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on the audio side and here on the video side with your YouTubes and other visuals. Please, all that algorithm stuff. Liking, belling, commenting, subscribing, notificationing, following, sending us money, whatever you want to do. Just, do it. We're not live. This is pre-recorded, but we are back together again, reunited, and it feels so good. Brian Ford with my co-host, Josh Walker. Josh, how you doing?
Doing great. I do want to apologize for having a few weeks off. Most of them have been my fault. I've started a new job, and that's been kind of taxing and taking up a lot of my time and energy. But we'll get it back regular as we get closer to the season. But I'm doing good. I'm excited for this weekend with Scott Fishbowl coming up. Live drafts have already started. I'll be in DC on Sunday drafting. Just to give a little plug, I think there will be some going for two stuff going on live while the draft is going on because Jeff will be in DC as well as Joe Bond with Fantasy Six Pack. So check all that out on Sunday afternoon. Be a bunch of drunk people trying to draft a good team.
And I think Jeff has raffled off his first round pick, correct?
Yep.
And who won that? I don't think I caught.
I haven't looked, but I know Jeff picks. I picked 10th, and I think he either picks 11 or 12, so it's close to me. So I'm kind of enjoying that his first pick might just be a wash.
Nice, yeah. You know what? I bet you Jamie bid on it, and he's going to pick Roshan.
That'd be fine with me.
But yeah, we've always been a show that kind of acknowledges that life gets lifey. Some of it's physical wellness, some of it's mental wellness, some of it is, feeding our families or just whatever, for me, not my family is 2 dogs, but sometimes I'm fighting genocide. So, it's these things come before, stupid fantasy football. But if you play stupid fantasy football, please keep watching. We're going to be continuing our series tonight on backfields, right? So we're going 5 backfields at a time, to try to read the tea leaves and figure out what we think is going to go on with these backfields in 2024, and then therefore, how to play them in a dynasty format. It's been kind of a lull as far as news goes. The mini camps are over and the pads don't start for another week. I think the Ravens are the first on July 13th. But if you're a sicko like me who is also unemployed and is at home consuming content and doing best ball drafts, there is some stuff, some buzz around certain guys or some guys moving in the market and that sort of thing with these running backs. Anybody stand out to you in the last few weeks as somebody notable that either went up or went down, or that you are trying to get more of or trying to sell?
I think one that kind of hit recently, and it shouldn't be a surprise to most people, but some people still had hope for Alexander Madison. I think Zamir White stock is going up a little bit, but I was looking around at some trades, and Zamir White was just basically went for a throw-in a trade. So I think he's still pretty cheap to get. He'd be a good buy because I think he's going to get plenty of volume. And I think Madison's just there in case he gets hurt. Another trade I made, I got Derrick Henry for really cheap. So I think this just proves that you can get these older running backs, if you're contending, of course, like Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry. Like I got Derrick Henry, Pickens for a first. And George Pickens in a team where I'm competing, so like a late first, like 110. So the market's there. I think it's a really good time to buy veteran running backs if you're contending.
And I know we're kind of far out from the next rookie class, and in some ways, sort of a generic late first or generic early first. They carry the same weight year to year, but I just saw a 2-round rookie mock for 2025 last night with rookie big board with Matt Hicks and John Laub, and it's not looking good. There's a few wide receivers at the top that we like, a few running backs at the top that we like, and the quarterbacks are very iffy, very uncertain right now. So the 110 or 111 in a super flex, at the moment at least, for two guys that could help you compete this year is pretty good. One of the guys that I want to talk about, we're going to be talking about tonight anyway. But another one is Zach Moss. We talked about a couple episodes ago. I think he's, if you want to talk about this year's Mike Davis, this year's Alexander Madison, this year's projectable volume guy that I think is going to disappoint a lot of people, it's Zach Moss. And it's interesting because you see people making what I think is a good case with using cogent points for the upside there. And I think a lot of things that they pull out is the tendency for the Bengals to run out of the shotgun, and that Mixon wasn't very good at that, wasn't comfortable with it, and Moss is. On the other hand, people like me making the case against it, that he's just this classic, dead zone running back that we're just projecting volume for. And, I think last year, outside of like some early games, he just turned right back into Zach Moss. And, I just don't see it. I think one thing that's helping him is Chase Brown is still a mystery box and still a question mark. We like some of the upside as far as explosiveness and the receiving game, but he can't pass block. He's not great between the tackles. So we'll see. But yeah, he's Zach Moss is a guy that I'm seeing a lot of people sort of plant flags on one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm kind of, if I had to choose between the two, I'd obviously want Chase Brown over them in Dynasty. But Zach Moss is pretty efficient last year, but the more handles he got and the more like carries he got per game, instead of just getting 7 to 10, once he got over 15, his efficiency went down and he kind of fell back into like a more mediocre running back. So I think he's better off not being the bell cow back.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's going to be a pretty, which we'll talk about that later, but I think it's going to be a pretty good split.
All right. So time to pay the bills. Today's show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has it all. Of course, the industry leader in best ball with all sorts of contests going on. The flagship BBM, Best Ball Mania. Then, of course, Marathon, Eliminator, weekly winners, some of the shorter time box contests like the puppies and stuff. I maxed out the Pit Bull last night. So, I'm one of those, what do they call them? Like slow max bros, where like I sign up, I max out all the slow drafts to make sure I get in. And then, like, I just sit there and wait for the picks to happen while other people are like, darn, I can't get in now. Yeah, and so anyway, I'm a sicko and I'm spending money I can't afford on best ball because that's how addiction works. Probably not what the company wants me to say in the ad read, but they're not just football. They have baseball and golf and tennis and basketball and racing, and they're not just best ball. They have DFS once the season starts and pick'ems, where you can go higher or lower on certain player stats and that sort of thing. For season long and then also weekly. WNBA pick'ems are actually popping off a lot there. Recently seen a lot of people tweet about them. With a couple of these exciting rookies hitting the WNBA, it's like the talk of the town now, and it's finally getting finally getting the attention it deserves. So why am I talking about this? They sponsor the show. Go to underdog.com or go to the Underdog app. And if you are a new account, you haven't used Underdog yet, and when you make your first deposit, you use the promo code GF2, you will get a 50% deposit match up to $250 from Underdog. So make sure you go to underdog.com or the Underdog app, put in the promo code GF2, put down some money, start playing, maybe even start winning. All right. So as we said before, tonight's topic is, of course, the backfields. And so I'm going to pull up the slides here in a second. As we know, very famously, the slides keep us in line and straying too far. Although, you know what, I like 2-hour shows. What the heck? Why not? But yeah, let's pull these up and make sure. Got the right window here. Bada bing, bada boom. Click on this, click on that. And Hey, all right. And do a little bit of this. And okay, we're on the side. We'll stay on the side. I think we were on the bottom last time, but let's stay on the side this time. Why not? Okay. So I joke about ambiguous backfields. Ambiguous backfield actually has a technical meaning, just like zero RB and just like RB dead zone. But because of the shifting markets in both the NFL and in fantasy football, all three of those things now sort of don't really mean what they used to mean and are now just labels for something, right? So ambiguous backfield specifically had an ADP description behind it, right? Like it was a description of backfields where there were two guys that were closer in ADP, and the market showing that they don't know who to choose, and oftentimes I think the data showed that whoever the first guy in ADP was ended up being okay. Same thing with dead zone, and now it describes a genre of a running back rather than the ADP location. What I find interesting in Underdog now is even if you do a zero RB build in the sense that like you hammer wide receiver early, the guys waiting for you are not the guys who were waiting for you in zero RB a few years ago. So it's almost like you're getting the best of both worlds now, because the guys left at zero RB are actually good running backs.
Yeah.
And so that's been an interesting development too in the current wide receiver running back market. And so when we talk about ambiguous, we just talk about there's a certain amount of who's going to be the backup, who's going to have the pass catching role, and that sort of thing. What are the roles going to be, right? I think trying to figure out running back touches and roles and things like that is one of the more interesting exercises in fantasy football. And hey, if you get it right, you might win some cash. So let's start out with the Washington Commanders. For those watching on the video there, we have some rankings in ADP for each running back listed after their age and their contract. I'll try to be as explicit with that as possible without boring you, just to make sure that the audio listeners are getting a sense of what the video folks are seeing on the screen. So we've got Robinson and Eckler, B-Rob and Austin Eckler here in the Commanders' backfield. Brian Robinson is 25. His rookie deal runs through next year, 2025. And they're going for two rankings. He's RB 28 in KTC, also RB 28 in Fantasy Calc, RB 33 in Dynasty Data Lab. He's 1111 angel numbers at RB 33. I have him at 22, and you have him at 30. I'll read Eckler, and then we'll talk about what we see for those two before we move on to others. Eckler is 29. He has an out in his contract after this year, and then if he stays, would be a UFA after 2025. GF2 has him at RB 43, KTC at 49, Fantasy Calc at 39, Dynasty Data Lab ADP of 1304 at the RB 41. You and I both have him in the 40s at 45. So I think where this conversation starts is, what do we expect from the Washington offense? We've got Cliff Kingsbury, who, years 2 and 3 in Arizona were really good. Years 1 and 4, not so much. We've got the rushing quarterback in Jaden Daniels, and that improves rushing lanes and efficiency for rushers usually. But usually as a rusher, it does decrease checkdowns and RB targets. But also he's a rookie running back and rookie quarterback, and rookie quarterbacks also don't often get great results from their wide receivers. And if he struggles and the overall offense struggles, then we see some capped ceilings for these two guys. For me, I like Brian Robinson a lot. I think he's underrated. Clearly, I have him 8 spots ahead of where you do. I have him at RB 22. You have him at RB 30. I think he's nothing spectacular, but I think people think he's just mediocre, and he's actually a pretty good football player and can catch a pass or two. And then the question, of course, is which Austin Eckler do we get, right? Do we get the Austin Eckler? I guess the question is, was last year's Austin Eckler basically he got injured early in the year and never was 100%, and he's going to be better now, and there's a bounce back? Or is he perhaps hitting the age cliff, and he just is what he is as a 29-year-old running back. And how much is the pass catching duties going to matter in this offense? And do we see him taking any goal line work away from B-Rob? So your thoughts on the relationship between Robinson and Eckler?
Yeah, so first I should clear something up. When you messaged me talking about rankings, I went and edited some. I did not hit publish.
Oh, okay.
So I had Brian Robinson at 26, still a little bit behind you, but that is it's higher than 30. I do like him, and I moved him up mostly because Jaden Daniels being there. I think that's going to help him. And I also think the way this team is built, the game script is going to be a little bit better than it was last year, because it seemed like he had good games in the first half, but then next thing you know, they're down 20 points, and he's not really getting the touches he was.
Terrible offensive line, too.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think game script was bad. I think it's going to be a better offense overall, and I think that's going to help him. I think he's going to be the main first and second down back. He also showed the ability to be pretty good catching the ball, too. He had a few big catches for touchdowns. But I do think Eckler is probably going to step into that role on like big third down drives at the end of a half or something when they're trying to move quick. I think Eckler will be out there just because he's one of the better pass catching backs, even if he's kind of slow now and not looking like he used to. He's still very useful. I think as far as that goes, I think he's probably already hit his peak and on the wrong side of 29. I think what we saw last year might be what he is, but there still could be some value because even though the team will be better, I still think there will be some games where they get behind quick and he'll get a lot more reps just trying to pass the ball. Chris Rodriguez, not really on my radar unless an injury. I think it's going to be just Robinson and Eckler most of the time.
Yeah, Chris Rodriguez with the addition of Eckler, I think not that they have the same role, but it's now if Brian Robinson gets injured, Chris Rodriguez probably moves into more of the first and second down role, and will have an increased role and increased value. But last year, if Brian Robinson went down, I think Rodriguez probably was looking at a bigger role because the other person was Antonio Gibson. Is 29-year-old 2024 Austin Eckler better than 2023 Antonio Gibson, and does that cap the contingent upside of drafting a guy like Chris Rodriguez in the 24th round at where he's going in startups? So one guy that I also want to flag, Michael Wiley, a UDFA. We have him ranked at 135, and probably because I'm one of the few sickos that's even ranking him, and because he's not on any of the other platforms that we're talking about. I forget where. I think I have him in the 90s or something like that. He's a pass catcher out of University of Arizona, and he's competent, not super athletic, but when there was an injury substitution at the Senior Bowl, Wiley was the first one up, and he replaced I want to say not Jonathan was it when Rasheen Ali pulled his bicep? Shoot. Anyway, he's a guy to keep an eye on, where if Eckler gets an injury, or even, I don't know, they realize early on in the season that 29-year-old, Austin Eckler is, running in mud. He's a guy who, if they're carrying 4 running backs and maybe he's a kick returner, so he makes the roster, just a guy, a deep sleeper to keep your eye on. As far as Robinson, just getting back to him real quick, I mean, that 11-11 ADP I think is great. Right. Yep. If you're in a startup and you're sort of operating within the market, whether or not you sort of agree with the prices, if you zig when others are zagging, you're zigging into paying too much for running backs, probably. Right. So both in underdog drafts and in dynasty startups, that's the pocket where I want to start hitting running backs. And look at that, a pretty good, a high volume, lead back for what we think could be a high octane offense is there in the 11th round, and so that's where I want to start hammering running back. So, what about Eckler's ADP of only like a round and a half later at 1304? Do you think that gap should be bigger?
Yeah, I think he should be going closer to the 15th, because at that point, maybe even 14th, but early 13th round it's a little too early for me. It's only 8 spots behind, 8 running backs behind Robinson, and I think the gap between them is a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I love June and July, right? Because in a lot of cases, like I can agree with the bull case and the bear case for any player, right? Because because there's a lot of people making good cases one way or another, and I've seen a lot of people say that Eckler is going to bounce back and be a value. I'm not so sure. All right. Next team up is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Time to relive the Etienne Tank Bigsby conversation, which I know you're looking forward to, Josh. First of all, let me be clear. I never said Bigsby was better than Etienne or should start ahead of him or should be the lead back or will be the lead back. What I said was that Bigsby had a well-rounded skill set and a better breadth of talent, whereas Etienne's talent is narrower but deeper, right? So let's take a look at both these guys. So Etienne is 25. He's on his rookie deal. His 5th-year option was exercised, so that's a positive sign. The team wants him back for that 5th year. After 2025, he will be a UFA. He's RB6 in the going for 2 composite rankings. I have him 8th. You have him 6th. In KTC, he's 7. Fantasy Calc, RB6. Dynasty Data Lab, 311 ADP at RB6. Our friend Tank Bigsby will be 23 next month, so still young. Rookie deal through 2026. Going for 2 has him ranked composite at 58. I have him at 44. Did you change from 60?
Okay. Let me check.
Yeah. And then KTC is 64, Fantasy Calc 61, Dynasty Data Lab 1809 at RB 64. I think people have lost their minds on Tank Bigsby, and that's where I'm going to start the conversation while you're looking for your ranking. So Etienne is a very good player, and that's all he was, and that's all he'll ever be. He's not great between the tackles. His receiving prowess is overrated, and coming out of college was based on volume, not on great route running and great hands, right? This is a team who drafted Tank Bigsby day 2 because they wanted to take touches off of Etienne. They did not want him to get that, bell cow workhorse workload, right? Did Tank work out last year? No, he had a very bad season. There was a lot of, basically he had like 5 touches and they all turned into like fumbles and interceptions and disaster. But guess what? Had a better missed tackle force per attempt than Travis Etienne. This year, the team again says they want to take carries away from Etienne, and specifically they want to give it to Tank Bigsby. They've been talking positively about Tank. They're not burying him, which they very well could. They could be like the Rams treat Zach Evans, but they're not, right? This is the first time since high school that Tank Bigsby will be in the same offense 2 years in a row. I think that matters. I think he had a bad rookie season and can adjust and be fine in his second year. With Travis Etienne last year, after the bye, he was a very different running back. Going into the bye, he had 3 games of 2 touchdowns. And, people remembered that. Then he had 24 carries for 79 yards in the 8th game. And then he hit the bye. And then after the bye, right, the team was so desperate to get touches away from Etienne, they gave the ball to freaking D'Ernest Johnson. So that's why I believe Jacksonville when they say they want to take touches away from Etienne and want to give them to Tank Bigsby. After the bye, 9 for 35, 14 for 52, 20 for 56, 11 for 45 and a touchdown, 14 for 35 and a touchdown, 10 for 31, 6 for 12. A really good week 16 helped you in the fantasy playoffs on New Year's Eve against Carolina. 16 for 102 and 2 touchdowns again. And then week 17, 16 for, or week 18, sorry, 16 for 57. His touches went down. His receiving went down. Like this team wants to give the ball to somebody else. And I get that maybe Tank had a bad year, but you're telling me that the RB2 behind Travis Etienne in an offense that we expect to get better, led by Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk. The difference between those two backs is the top 10 and then down in the 60s. Who do you think we're giving the ball to? And I mean, you and I both have D'Ernest Johnson, who's 28, ranked in the 90s. Like, I think the market has just lost its mind on Tank Bigsby, and I think he's a guy who I'm looking to get at cost at the back end of my my best ball drafts is to round out my backfield as like the RB6. Certainly at 1809 in Dynasty, I'm taking that. In startups, I'm taking that swing. I'm sure as hell not paying the 311 cost for Travis Etienne because I just don't like taking any running back really in that range. So tell me why I'm wrong.
All right. I actually do have a reason. When I updated these, I moved Bixby up to 55. It's up a little bit, but still pretty far behind you.
Okay.
And I moved D'Ernest Johnson up to 82. And the reason I moved D'Ernest Johnson up is because even though he's 28, that's why I still have him back in the 80s. He's kind of an afterthought, but I think for this year, if Tank Bigsby makes one mistake or like has another game where he just like gives the other team a touchdown, I think he's going to step in. And he showed one year Nick Chubb was out, he had 500 yards and 3 touchdowns, averaging almost 6 yards a carry. I think he's still a really good running back, and I think that's why they brought him back, is just in case it doesn't work with Bigsby, then he'll get some touches. And I think he's going to get more even if Bigsby doesn't make a mistake. I just think they have him on the team to give him the ball every once in a while. I have ETN 6. That's pretty standard. Honestly, I could probably move him back to 8 and move Saquon up and Josh Jacobs because I think they're going to get volume. But he still has some big playability that not a lot of running backs have. Each year he has kind of tailed off and got a little bit like closer to mediocre. And I think Bigsby will do better this year too. So I'm not completely writing Bigsby off. He's younger, and the reports have been pretty good about him this year, and they haven't given up on him. They're not going to bury him. So yeah, I think it will be better. I have him on a few teams from last year just in case I was wrong. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm not trying to move him. I'm just going to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I would have Tank even 4 or 5 spots higher if it weren't for I made an adjustment to my rankings where I had this big tier of like the late 20s to into the late 30s, where it was basically young guys and a lot of like contingent upside guys or question marks or uncertainty, Charb and Jerome Ford and Jalen Warren and Kendre Miller and Roshan and that kind of thing. And then I put some old guys that I think could be off the cliff this year. Connor, Kamara, Aaron Jones, and Mostert. I had them below that tier. I was like, you know what? Let me throw them up for now in the tier with the late 20s, and then that bumped everybody down. So I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was thinking even more highly of Tank. I think what stands out to me in all this, no matter what you want to do with Tank Bigsby, is the startup economy with taking a running back at 311. Like, even if you love Etienne, are you taking him at 311? Like, are you spending that startup pick on it? What say you?
No, I'm not. The only way I get ETN now is if I already have him, probably just because, especially with tight ends coming up, the growing popularity of tight end premium. I'm either looking for a wide receiver one, my second quarterback, or someone like Laporta or McBride if they fall down into the third round. I'm not really, and if I'm going to get a running back that early, I want to get Gibbs or one of these guys that are 22, 23 years old and not a 25-year-old, honestly. So
Yeah.
I probably won't be drafting him too much.
So he's actually moved up to 310 since a couple nights ago when I made the slide. So let me read you the first few guys after 310. I'm going to start with a couple guys before 310 because, it's average draft position. So theoretically, these guys are available in the same range, right? You tell me if you would rather have them or Etienne on your dynasty. Now, again, I know like you don't know what you've done with your first two picks, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So Dak Prescott.
I'll take Dak.
Okay. Olave. London.
Yep. I'm high on London. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. It's making my pants tight when I think about Atlanta's offense. You and I are going to be equally excited about Atlanta's offense this year. Okay, Trey McBride.
Yeah, Trey McBride for sure.
I'm not that I would take Etienne over McBride, but I don't know that what I'm trying to do with tight end this year is like, listen, there's 6 or 7 guys that can do it, so I'll let the league take the first few. But yes, McBride over Etienne. Jalen freaking Waddle at 312.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Tua at 401. Like, what are we doing?
Yep.
Ayuk 402.
Yeah. Ayuk.
All right. And then we've got Saquon Barkley. It's another running back, so I guess that doesn't count. And he's older, so you probably wouldn't say that. But then there's, Kincaid, Rome Odunze, Jared Goff, and Brock Bowers, and Devin Achane, by the way, coming right after that. Like, I kind of at cost want all those guys except for Barkley.
Say those last 3 or 4 again.
Sure, yeah. Kincaid, Odunze, Jared Goff, and Brock Bowers. Oh, and Achane.
I might take Etienne. Or I would take Bowers and maybe Achane just for age because, like I said, Etienne's 25. But I would take Etienne over Barkley. I have him ranked higher. And I'd definitely take him over Kincaid because I'm still not completely sold on Kincaid yet.
I mean, Nico's going the 409. Kyron Williams the 410. And I can see, like, okay, you're on the side of Kyron's going to get fewer touches this year because Corum is a Kyron clone. Okay, fine, but I can get him around later than I can get Etienne. Devontae Smith and Michael Pittman round out the 4th round. Like, you're asking me to spend a 3rd round pick on Etienne when I don't know. It's hard for me to justify that.
No, I'm with you.
Anything? So just want to flag for the sickos, Keelan Robinson, who's 24 and he's on his rookie deal through 2027. I believe he was a 5th round pick. He's going to make the team as a kick returner, very likely. All athleticism, not many touches in college. He's out of Texas, by the way, but his combine numbers were very, very good, and he's a good pass catcher. Should Etienne go down, I think some of that receiving work could be scooped up by Keelan Robinson. And so he's a deep sleeper to keep your eye on. I mean, I'm not saying he through the roof, right? Like I have him ranked RB 99. So, but just keep your eye on that. All right, our third team, the Steelers. This is a very interesting backfield this year, and it's like both of these guys at the top here that we're going to talk about are close, no matter who's ranking them or who's ADPing them or whatever, right? It's just a matter of which do you have first, and they're always just a few spots away. So let's take a look at Najee Harris. He's 26 on his rookie deal. The team did not pick up his 5th-year option. Not too surprising for a running back who's been a little banged up, and so he's going to be a UFA after this year. He's playing for a contract, and oh, by the way, something about like a really like awesome diet and weight loss and things like that. So, again, I know it's like, off-season narrative, but when that's all we have, we think about this kind of information, we have to think about, okay, does that mean, the wear and tear is going to be easier for him? Does that mean that he's going to be more efficient and have better recovery, right? So he's going for twos running back 22. You and I are split on him. Tell me if this isn't true. I have him at 18 and you have him at 24.
23. And I have Warren at 22. I have them back to back now.
Okay. All right. And KTC at 24, Fantasy Calc 24, Dynasty Data Lab 908 at coming in at RB 25. Jaylen Warren, a lot of people are really high on him. He's been the sort of Tony Pollard to the Zeke Najee here with the efficiency and explosion, and we just hope he gets more touches. He'll turn 26 in November. He was a UDFA in 2022, so he will be a restricted free agent after this year. Going for two has him at 30. I have him at 27. You have him at 22. And let's see, KTC has him at 22. Fantasy Calc at 28. Dynasty Data Lab 1008 around after Najee and 4 running back spots behind on 29. Then, of course, there's veteran Cordarrelle Patterson and UDFA rookie Dijon Edwards from Georgia, who has some game, but, is a UDFA. So Arthur Smith, as much as, that name triggers a lot, he's the offensive coordinator for the Steelers. He's good at designing an offense. He may not use people the right way or whatever, but he's good at designing an offense. And he's good at designing a run game. We expect, for several reasons, not only the Arthur Smith-ness of the offense, but also sort of the not very dynamic receiving weapons and the not very good quarterbacks, that there's going to be a lot of running back touches to go around. So I think both these guys are going to see some sort of, volume that's going to be solid, and they're relevant, and they're good fantasy picks, sometimes even at cost, right? I'm more optimistic on Najee this year than I have been, in the past. I have him up at 18. I mean, it's in a tier, but I have him up at 18. I have Warren down a little bit there at 27. For me, it's just a matter of, I think I still need to see how much volume that's going to be. Like, everybody eats with Arthur Smith. Okay, well, what does that look like? And how much of it is going to be passing versus how much of it is going to be running. I think I'm probably a little different from the market in that I have a bit of a bigger spread between the two. How do you see these two working out as far as their roles and how they're splitting touches and stuff?
I think it's going to be about as 50-50 as you can get it. And that's just me going off. So, for example, the Falcons last year, the Falcons had one of the best running back prospects and one of the better running backs in the league already in Bijan Robinson. And they have Tyler Algier, who's very good. I like Tyler Algier. But the carries where Bijan had 214, Algier had 186. And part of that might be just because he was a rookie and trying to ease him in. But I think that's just kind of how Arthur Smith likes to run it, if he has two running backs that can do that. And I think this is the perfect team for it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be 50-50. One thing I did want to note on this, I think pay attention to the quarterback battle, because I think if Justin Fields becomes a quarterback at any point, I think Warren might do a little bit better. I think based on the offense they might have to run, I think he's better laterally quickness to run out of the shotgun more often, unless they want to put Fields under center and let him drop back like that. But I don't think they will too much. But they'll both be valuable throughout the year. I have them 22 and 23, so I'm kind of torn. I could see it going either way. And I did move Cordarrelle Patterson up to 88, so he's still back there, but Arthur Smith loves him. He's on that team for a reason. I think he's going to get some touches. That's going to be really, really annoying, because that's just kind of how Arthur Smith is. So he's more just a stash if you have one of them and just want a little insurance.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about prices. We were okay with the ADP on Brian Robinson. He's RB33 in Dynasty Data Lab at 11.11. I have Robinson and Najee much closer. but even as far as ranks go, but even in ADP, Najee's a little bit over a round higher. No, almost 2 rounds higher at 908, right? We said we were comfortable with 1111 for Brian Robinson. How comfortable are you at 908 with Najee?
I think this depends on how you built your team. If it's been kind of how I see, I haven't really done startups much, but
Yeah.
if you wait a little bit on running back, I think that's a good place to kind of get started. I think pairing Najee with Brian Robinson's a pretty good start, especially if you've filled out, your wide receiver 1, 2, and 3, your quarterbacks, and maybe a good tight end. I think you'll be okay, especially competing with that. So I'm okay with it there. Obviously, at price, I'd prefer Warren. I have them one apart, so you can maybe wait around to get Warren, but I'm okay with both of the prices.
Yeah. I'm much better with B-Rob at 1111 than I am with Najee at 908, but it's not terrible, right? You're sacrificing. I mean, Montgomery, okay, I probably want him, but Ricky Pearsall, who may get a 10% snap share this year, Michael Penix, Chris Godwin, Tyjae Spears, who I'm like so grossly above the market on Tyjae Spears, it's not even funny. So I would rather have him, but the other guys you're sacrificing, Xavier Leggett, that's a mystery box. Calvin Ridley, people have made a really good case that it's not happening with him. Christian Watson's a guy I would be interested in rather than Najee. Hollywood Brown, maybe, probably. But then you're getting into Tony Pollard, Adonai Mitchell, and then RB2s like Blake Corum or an old guy like Aaron Jones, Deontay Johnson, former teammate at 1007. Bit of a bargain there, but so I'm kind of on the fence about Najee. It would be highly dependent on what my first 8 picks looked like.
Yeah, that's hearing Deontay Johnson 1007 is kind of wild to me. I know we're not really talking about wide receivers, and maybe we will, but like he's a perfect wide receiver for Bryce Young. He's what Adam Thielen did, but a lot better, a lot more explosive, and just a lot better wide receiver. So I would take him over Najee and Jalen Warren.
Yeah, I think so. That's probably a good bet. But I mean, we should be talking about receivers because we're talking about prices, and prices are partly about opportunity cost, right? Like, what are you giving up? What is the 2v2 that you have where it's like, okay, if I took Najee here and this next guy there, what would it look like if I flip-flopped that, and took Deontay Johnson and then somebody else later? Like, would you rather have, let's see, if you had the 08 in the odd rounds, so would you rather have like Najee Harris and in the 9th and Jacoby Myers in the 14th, or would you rather have, like, let's say something realistic that's close on this board, like Chris Godwin in the 9th, and then Dontavian Wicks, Gus Edwards in the 14th?
Yeah, the second one you said with where you can still get Gus Edwards, who this year is probably going to be just as good.
He's gonna get some touchdowns. So
yeah, I'd rather go that other route. Because that's pretty good value for Godwin too.
So yeah, CPAT, we said keep an eye out, stash him. He's 33. He has an out after this year, but the contract does officially run through 2025. I have him at 92. You moved him up to 88. Yeah, he's gonna be annoying. Arthur Smith likes him. I was listening to somebody, I forget who it was. I think it was Ben Gretsch, break down the RB touches in Atlanta last year, and sort of making the case for that there's maybe going to be a little bit more on the table for Algier than people think. Like the Rams have that thing where they don't want to take anybody off the field for the whole drive. They don't want to tip any plays, right? And so if Was it Zach Robinson, right?
Mhm.
Coming from the Rams, wants to do that. You're maybe going to see heavier Bijan usage, and then Algier is now the Blake Corum, where it's like 2 drives Bijan and 1 drive Algier, and maybe. But if you take those annoying touches that Cordell Patterson got, and then the year before or even before that, like Avery Williams or whoever they were running out, right? Like, and then you sort of basically give most of those to Algier. Now he has a little bit more standalone upside, along with his very high contingency upside.
Yeah, he's one of the best handcuffs. If you want to handcuff running backs, that's the one I would do is handcuff Bijan with Algier.
So Dyson Edwards at a UGA, he was in there with Kendall Milton. From what I remember from my rookie research, more of the pass catcher guy, but at the same time also got surprisingly high usage in close relative to what Milton got in close. So you're from the North Georgia Hills or something like that. I just like that because it's the lyric of a song. Do you know that song?
What song is it?
It's called Ginseng Sullivan. It's like a kind of a old folk song. Fish does a cover of it.
I might have heard it, but it doesn't ring a bell without.
It's a long way from the Delta to the North Georgia Hills.
Nope.
Anyway, so do you know anything about Dyjon Edwards? Should we be putting him on our radar? I'm a sicko. I'll stash anybody that can catch passes, but
Yeah, I think it would take a few things happening. It'd take probably Warren or Najee going down, then Patterson going out, which is pretty realistic, being that Najee's history and Patterson's 33. I
yeah.
think he's
What
just
if Patterson's
stash.
dust? What if
Yeah,
he doesn't make the team? Right?
yeah. Then it doesn't hurt to stash. I think he will be more of a pass catcher because if anyone in Najee or Warren get hurt, the other just steps into the bell cow role. I don't think anything too crazy is going to change unless both of them get hurt. But he's a
Well,
good stash.
I do, however, want Bijan and Dyjon to make mustard commercials together. Let's do it. Let's do it. Needs
Do
to
that,
happen.
Jeff. Get on it.
All right, the Seahawks. Time to relive my Zach Charbonnet love from last year. So going into last year, I was a little early on things, right? I said I would not be surprised if by the end of the year it's 60% Charbonnet and 40% Walker. Sharp's touches did increase, but it was not 60-40. We've got Kenneth Walker at age 24 in October. His rookie deal runs through 2025. He's going for 2 RB 11. I have him at 11. You have him at 12. Is that still correct?
Yeah.
Okay. KTC has him at 10. Fantasy Calc 11. Dynasty Data Lab 510 at RB 11. Zach Charbonnet is 23. His rookie deal runs through 2026. And going for 2 RB 35. I have him at 33. Do you have him at 39 still?
38. He just moved up one.
All right. And then 30 in KTC, 38 in Fancy Calc. Dynasty Data Lab 1204 at RB 37. We'll talk about McIntosh and Helani here in a second as the backups. So I am declaring that I was not wrong just early on the whole Sharp Walker thing. I think we know what Walker is. He's an inefficient boom-bust player. The fact that he's even in the top 12 of dynasty running backs is just really about age and explosiveness. I don't think he's just very good. I think Charbonnet is tougher, much more well-rounded. We've got a new offensive coordinator coming in who did have, Dylan Johnson as basically a bell cow last year at UW, but before that did like to mix in multiple backs before Johnson transferred in. I think Charbonnet is a much better receiver. I think he's better at pass pro. Not only is there contingent upside with Charbonnet, but I think the standalone value is going to increase too. And if you're telling me I can get him 7 rounds later in a startup than Kenneth Walker, I'm taking Sharp at cost all day. I guess it all depends on how much you believe in Walker and how good you think Sharp is on how these touches and rolls are going to work out. So what say you?
I'll just say I don't think in the 5th round I'll really be drafting Walker too much. It's just not where I'm looking for running backs anymore. But I do think he's going to be the guy. I think he's still really good, and I think it's going to take something happening for Charbonnet to really step in to need into his role, which Kenneth Walker's kind of seems to always be dinged up. So all it takes is Charbonnet going on a run for a few games, and I think it could switch. But I moved Charbonnet when it was 39. I had him even further down. I kind of buried him, but I do think he might eat into some of the goal line work. Definitely get some pass catching work because I think he's just as well rounded as Kenneth Walker. I think Kenneth Walker just has sometimes to a fault the big playability and can sometimes just break one big and really be a spark plug. Um, I'm not sure if Charbonnet can do that yet, but I think he's more sturdy. And at the price, I would definitely prefer Charbonnet at 1204 instead of Walker in the 5th round.
Yeah, I mean, he's the perfect guy really to be hammering in the 12th.
Yeah.
I mean, which also I think tells you how valuable or how much of a value Ryan Robinson is, right? Because we have Sharps here, who's technically the RB2 on the team, going only 5 picks after in ADP. But yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that could swing too. If either Charbonnet just comes out and looks better, or if Walker gets hurt, Charbonnet could instantly be a top 20 running back, and getting that in the 12th round could be huge.
Yeah, because what you get with Charbonnet is probably some standalone as far as some goal line and some receiving work, and then also the contingent upside of a Walker injury, etc. And when you're getting that in the 12th versus what I think is an inefficient, overrated Walker in the 5th, I think that's the move. I just want to make sure that I get. I mean, nothing's perfect. I could use Dynasty Data Lab or whatever, but I just pulled up KTC right now, and Kenneth Walker is at RB10, right after a 2025 mid-first, and a couple spots before a 2024 late first. I'm not paying either of those prices for Kenneth Walker. Like that's
no, I agree.
Yeah. Even if I'm an RB needy team, like I can get that or close to it either in aggregate or with a cheaper piece.
I mean, even 111, 112, you can take Jonathan Brooks and you'll already be. I have him ranked higher than Kenneth Walker. So
same. Yeah, I'm aggressive. I got him at 7. I think I'm. Yeah. I'm drinking that Kool-Aid for sure. All right, and let's see. I think this is our final one of the night, and that is the Saints. Oh, you know what? Let's just, let's do our due diligence here. Kenny McIntosh, not impressive in the draft process, not impressive as a rookie, but DJ Dallas does leave. So there is room for some sort of backup role, pass catcher, special teams. He's 24. He has a rookie deal that goes through 2026, so he's probably still going to be on the team. There's not much other competition. Any interest there? I mean, I have him way down at like 138.
Yeah, I moved him up to 98, which is still, it'd have to be a really deep draft for me to even draft him. It's probably just someone I'll pick up on waivers if I have an extra spot or if something happens. But I mean, I think he's the next guy to step in if one of those two get hurt to at least a semi-prominent role. He's not flashy or impressive, but he also I don't think will do anything to really hurt the team, and I think that's good enough for coaches sometimes just to fill in.
If we think about his receiving acumen, I think he probably stands to gain more with a Charbonnet injury than a Walker one, but we'll get increased touches. I want to flag George Holani for folks. He'll be 24 in December. He was a UDFA. I have him ranked at running back 129, right? So obviously, pretty off the radar. But had it not been for some, injury-related inconsistency in college, he might have come out a year earlier and had, actual draft stock. He's got some quickness. He's got some receiving chops. He just was a little bit of an older prospect and was injured. Who knows? With this new kick return rule that's going to favor like running back vision more than, wide receiver speed, you never know. And so just a guy to watch in camp news to see if he's going to be making the team or not. All right. All right. So our final backfield, the Nolan Saints. There's really three semi-relevant, or at least semi-relevant guys here. The rest are kind of, off the radar, practice squad guys and stuff. I mean, James Robinson might even be cut. But anyway, I think it's time for me to take my Kamara stand. But so he's 29 in July. He'll be a UFA after 2025. But there's also 2 weird void years after that. And I don't know, he's making some cranky, malcontent stuff about the contract. And the Saints are always in cap hell and kicking the can down the road. And so trying to read Saints contracts on Spotrac makes my head hurt. He's going for 2 RB26. Did I move him up from 32, or is he at the end of that tier for me? Hold on one sec. I've got him, at 32. And you have him at 28. Is that
31?
Correct? 31. Okay.
Yep, 31.
And so he's going off in startups at 812 at RB21. KTC's RB26. KTC generally tends to favor younger guys. Fantasy Calc, which aggregates on trades that are made and the value you get, has him at RB20. Kendre Miller, a rookie last year, but injured for most of the season. He's 22 years old. I think he just turned 22 recently as well. His rookie deal runs through 2026. He's going for 2 RB41. I got him at 38. Do you still have him at 37?
I moved him up to 34.
Okay. I had him in that range too a couple weeks ago. He's in that big tier that I was talking about before. KTC 29, Fantasy Calc 36, Dynasty Data Lab 1201 at RB 35. And then, of course, there is Jamal Williams still alive and kicking at age 29. There's an out after 24 in his contract, and he's a UFA after 25 with other void years because Saints going for 2 RB 77. I buried him at 93. Do you still have him at 72?
Yeah.
Okay. KTC 103, Fantasy Calc 87. Not registering an ADP with Dynasty Data Lab. So there's a few moving parts here, and I think they're connected in the sense that, if you're low on Kamara, even if you're not high on Kendre, it's like, well, he's going to get stuff. But people are making cases one way or the other for both these guys. What say you? I'm going to give you the Saints to start off first. This is one of the backfields that you wanted to specifically talk about. So go ahead.
Yeah, so I obviously at cost, I'd prefer Kendre Miller. 4 rounds, 3.5 technically rounds later. I only have 6 spots between them. He's 22 compared to 29. So I'll start off at cost. I'd prefer Kendre Miller. But if you're a contending team and you haven't drafted a running back yet, and you're 902, 903, and Alvin Kamara's there, I think that's a really good start to your draft if you want to wait on running backs. Or you could wait even a little longer and get Aaron Jones. But that'd be the only way I'd be interested in actually drafting Kamara if I don't have him already. He might be a cheap trade target. But as far as roles go, it's really hard to tell. I think it's going to be, as far as like rushing down goes, I think it's going to be pretty close between Miller and Kamara. But I do think Kamara is still one of the elite pass catching backs. So I think most third downs or any big drives, I think Kamara will be out on the field just due to him being a veteran. He's not super efficient running the ball. I think last year he averaged like 3.9 yards per carry, but he's still really good in the passing game. So I think he's going to get the most touches overall, especially in a PPR league. And I didn't get to see enough of Miller catching the ball last year to really get a read on it, but I think he'll be more of an early downs. Might throw him in on the goal line if they don't give it to Jamal Williams. I just think Jamal Williams is cooked. He's 29, never been athletic. He had that one fluky year in Detroit. I have him ranked where I do just simply because I still think he might come in just on the goal line, and that might be his only role. So there's a chance of that happening. Then that would hurt Miller more than Kamara.
So I'm on board with that. For me, Kamara, I believe there's a very good case that the market should be viewing him closer to the way they're viewing Austin Eckler than the way they're viewing him now. He's had declining efficiency like 3 years in a row. And yes, he was whatever RB3 or whatever in points per game last year. But let's also remember was it a 13 target or a 13 catch game he had last year? There was a week that Derek Carr was just his shoulder was hurt, but he whatever, they started him because their quarterback room was terrible, and he had something like 13 catches for 33 yards. I know, I fight people who say PPR is a scam, but that's a PPR scam week right there. I'm trying to pull up his game logs. Do you remember what that was?
I can look. I have his actual page pulled up on Pro Football Reference game logs.
Yeah.
All right, it was 14 targets, 13 receptions, 33 yards. No touchdowns.
Right. And then a few weeks later, 14 for 12.
Yep, 12 receptions for 91 yards. Yep.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to be take out those two games guy, but with a quarterback who was hurt and who notoriously doesn't like to throw deep, despite the fact that he threw a lot of deep balls last year, come on, really? What are we doing here? So, yeah, he's 29, declining efficiency. He's really only got the receiving part left, I think, on his resume. Kendre Miller, well, but then again, people are like, oh, well, Kamara, top 3, whatever, points per game, and there's a new OC, and, and people are writing them off, and, okay. Then there's Kendre Miller, right? And so I never liked him too much coming out of college. I know there were people who absolutely hated him. He's one of those, Jesse calls it, it looks like Tarzan plays like Jane kind of guys. But he does enough well. I think he's got enough of a well-rounded skill set. He's got size. He's got juice. That if you're the new OC coming in, now I think I'd be more confident in this if it was a new head coach as well. But if you're the new OC coming in and you're looking at okay, I gotta zhuzh up this offense, right? This offense doesn't do pre-snap motion. It needs more play action, needs more intermediate targets instead of just short dump off to Kamara and deep targets, right? Aren't you also going to say, let's try the 22-year-old guy with size and juice and not the guy whose rushing efficiency has been declining? Now, people point out oh, he only had whatever, production in his rookie year. And, and there's also Jamal Williams is still there. Jamal Williams, come on, folks. It's not you and I are not the market is telling us they believe the same thing, that Jamal Williams is far behind these two, that it's a Kendre Miller show and it's not a Jamal Williams show. So don't give me no Jamal Williams BS, right? And so you're looking at that offense as an OC, and you've got Jamal Williams, you've got Kamara. They're both, essentially moving towards, dust. And then you've got Kendre Miller, right, who was a young rookie and whose production was low last year because of a lot of injuries, right? Now, then there's, of course, the will he stay on the field folks who are going to, but there's half of them will also tell you that nobody's injury prone, But if you look at when everything was normal for him, right, when he was healthy and when he was able to have a role, look at Kendre Miller's week 18 numbers, right? He went off, right? And so it's a 1 week sample. I'm not saying, oh, that says everything, but it shows us that when conditions are somewhat normal for him, he can perform, right? And I don't see any reason not to be optimistic about Kendre Miller's workload increasing and him doing pretty well with that workload this year when it's just Alvin Kamara who is in front of him. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people love Kamara and hate Kendre Miller on the Twitterverse. I just don't get it. He's not the He's not the greatest running back, Kendre Miller. He's okay, right? But what are we looking for when we're in Dynasty, right? We're looking for cheap production, right? And if you can tell me that I can get him at 1201 for a guy who probably we think has some good standalone value as it is, and then also huge contingent upside with an injury to either one of these guys, like I don't want to be the Kendre Miller guy, but I'm the Kendre Miller guy now. Like I just please tell me I'm wrong.
No, I have Kendrick Miller up at 34, so I'm even a little bit higher. And honestly, I could make the case of moving him up over Blake Corum and Estime just because I think he'll get more touches immediately. I mean, it's not the same offense, but there has been shown with the Saints, with Kamara and Mark Ingram, that both can be fantasy relevant. And I think Kendrick Miller is going to get a lot of run. He's going to get a lot of carries. And in the right situation, he was really good. Like you said, week 18, he was 13 for 73 with a touchdown.
Right.
And
that's 5.6 yards a carry, right?
Yeah.
With a bad offensive line.
Oh yeah, they were horrible last year. I loved watching their games because they did so bad.
And he was 4 for 4 as far as targets and receptions go, with 53 yards in week 5, which might have been that same weird Kamara week where he caught like 1,000 passes. But like, what are we doing, folks? Like I understand that like there's a balance, right? Like you don't want to just almost like saying like, oh, there's projectable volume, who else is going to do it, is kind of the kiss of death for players, because that's not a reason to like somebody. You want a guy who's got upside and explosion and things like that. I think he's got a little bit of that. I think if he gets some run, he can definitely be productive, especially at cost, you know. And I have gone back and forth with him as far as his specific rank. So I actually did have him a little higher than 38, but like it's always been in that tier of like young, promising guys with Charb and Ford and Marshawn Lloyd and Jalen Wright, Corum, Ty Chandler, Ray Davis, Algier, Roschon, Chase Brown, Bigsby. Like there's some there with those guys that, you know, most of them have a little bit of standalone, at least all have contingent, like, and they're young. Like, I don't know. Like like, how are we not optimistic about Kendre Miller at cost?
Yeah. No, you're not wrong. I agree with you.
Yeah, I'm certainly not paying the Kamara price in startups at 812. Let me pull up the startups and preach some more. The old man yells at cloud. All right, so we've got Kamara at 812, right? A few picks before him, Cooper Kupp.
I'm not really. I just saw in the camp he just had another injury. I don't want either one of them, but I'd still probably take Kupp.
Yeah, like if two guys are almost dust, I'll take the wide receiver in the McVay offense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bo Nix.
Yeah, I'll take Bo Nix. He's gonna be sneaky good.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, McLaurin.
All right, then there's Kamara. Christian Kirk.
I'll take Kirk.
Zamir White.
Yeah, I got Zamir White ranked higher.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love Zamir White, and he is one of those like projectable volume. Who else is going to do it, guys? But you know, like, I mean, if you're making me choose between him and Kamara, I'll take Zamir White. Amari Cooper.
I'll take Amari.
Quarterback in said McVay offense, Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I'll take Stafford. I think he's got another year or two.
And then you get into the range we were before with Javonte, Montgomery, Pearsall, and Najee, right? So what are we doing here?
No, I agree. I don't have an answer for you. I think you're just hoping that he's the old Kamara that he has shown no proof of being anymore.
And of course, that's within the range of outcomes, right? Like he's not dusty. The new OC is innovative enough that the touches he does get, he's put in a position to succeed. And but I still don't think he's going to be put in the position to succeed at 812 RB21, right? Like I don't know. Yeah. I just just don't see it for Kamara. All right. Well, that'll just about do it for us tonight with the backfields. Next week, if we're around, there's a few more I'd like to talk about. I don't think we talked about the Jets, Patriots, Arizona, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Cleveland, Dallas, all options. Any of those sound juicy to you?
I think Carolina could be an interesting one to talk about. Tampa Bay could also be interesting. Bucky Irvin's been getting kind of some hate on Twitter. Uh, yeah, Brees Hall's healthy, or he says he's healthy. So, but Izzy's there. I think that'd be a good one to talk about also.
Yeah,
Let's get some more Izzy love.
I don't know, man. It's looking bad for him. I love him, but bruh, like I think it's over. I think he's gonna get cut. Like Braylon Allen's getting all the buzz. Isaiah Davis is there. Like I don't like Braylon Allen, but the team is telling us he's looking great. He can do things that Brees Hall can do. Like they're not saying anything about Izzy, and Izzy got hurt in camp too. So
okay.
Like, man, I mean, it wasn't major, but like he had to get like I think assisted by the trainer off the field, and then whatever had to close up shop. So yeah, man, I think that it's over for Izzy. I gotta learn to let go of my day 3 running backs
Me too.
faster than I used to. You know what I mean?
Look, if Estimate doesn't work out, I'm gonna need some help.
There was a guy. He's on the Giants. I think it was. I don't know if he was like a 7th round or a UDFA. His name was Jayshwan Corbin, and he was one of. Yeah, he was one of those for me. It was like, hey, keep him on your radar, sleeper. If he has some upside, if he gets a shot, and like it took me way too long to just drop him from my rosters. Like it's that hope. It's that but yeah, no, the Broncos. Did we? I think we already talked.
Yeah,
about
we
that.
did.
Yeah, we the first episode. That's going to be super interesting. So my take on that remains that people are underestimating the amount of touches that Estimate will get, and they're overestimating the gap between Jaleel McLaughlin and Blake Watson.
Yep.
Like
Jalil's getting hyped up.
And here's the thing that kind of annoys me about that, if I'll go on my soapbox for a bit. Like, I see guys like Jaleel McLaughlin or what's the other guy? I forget, Keaton Mitchell, who I think is about to be Wally pipped by Rasheen Ali. And guys like that. And it's like, I know I shouldn't think this. It's dumb or whatever. But it's like, I knew about these guys and was taking notes on them in the draft process before most people knew they existed. I think Jaleel McLaughlin, what was he, App State? Youngstown State, something like that, right? Like nobody would talk about Jaleel McLaughlin, right? But he was on my radar partly because of Matt Waldman and partly because of Cecil Lammey post draft, and and then then I see like prominent, sharp, well paid fantasy analysts, talking about getting on the Jaleel McLaughlin train. And it gets to that point where I'm like, whoa. No, like not this much, right? And then, oh, by the way, like there's Blake Watson here who Jaleel was a UDFA, right? Or was he round 7? He was a UDFA. And Blake Watson's a UDFA, so it's not like there's like a heavy investment in either one. Watson has a more well-rounded skill set. Jaleel is not any more explosive than Watson if you look at Watson's pro day numbers. Watson can catch the shit out of passes, maybe even better than Jaleel can. Probably better, has more of a foundation for pass pro than Jaleel does. Like, I get Jaleel McLaughlin showed out. I get he's explosive. I get that he's a bet you want to make at cost. I'm mixing him in my best ball too. I would not be shocked if in week 9, this is an Estime Blake Watson backfield, with a little bit of Javonte thrown in. That said, I think there's a even more of an upside case for Javonte than I thought there was a few weeks ago when we did the Denver episode. I think, let's say, it's well within the range of outcomes that Estime doesn't impress really enough to be much more than a handcuff. and we think about the number of backfield targets that Sean Payton running backs get, and Bo Nix's propensity to throw high percentage, short passes, I think there's an upside case for Javonte. But
No, I agree.
That's my rant.
Yeah, as bullish as I am on Estime, I still think Javante's a pretty good buy because there's a very good chance that that's actually what happens as opposed to Javonte, like Estime just completely taking over.
And then those same people who would have given me the Snoop Dogg gif last year if I mentioned Jaleel McLaughlin, right, are doing the same thing to me this year when I'm like, you guys should probably watch out for Blake Watson.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we got this. It's Jaleel time. Okay. All right. That's it. All right. I don't know. That's just old man yells at clouds. Let's land this plane here. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on the audio feed for Going for Two Live. If you're watching here on the videos and the YouTubes, the Twitches, and all that, do the other things that feed the algorithm monster what it must be fed. Like, subscribe, comment, bells and notifications, and all that jazz. Time for plugs. Josh, where can we find you and your work, and where can we find you on Sunday?
Oh, yeah. You can find me on Twitter at Rotonaut, ROTONAUT. I'm going to try and do some live tweeting while we're there, but also it's new people. I've not been around, so my social anxiety will probably keep me from doing much tweeting. But I'll be at the live draft. I'll be hanging out with Jeff, Joe Bond, a bunch of cool people I'm in the chat with. They all seem very nice. We'll be having some drinks. I think they're all starting at 10 a.m., so I won't get there till like 1 p.m., but it'll be fun. Check it out on the Going for Two YouTube and the Going for Two Discord. There's also a lot of stuff for Scott Fishbowl going on in there. So
I talked about the social anxiety. I went to the New York City live draft last year, and it took a lot. Like it's that thing is no longer my scene. Crowds and loud and drinking and bars and I brought my laptop and stuff, and like I barely moved from the chair that I was in. You know what I mean? Like I got up to get some tortilla chips and would order a drink or whatever, non-alcoholic, and then and then just like barely moved from the chair. Like that's just what I do when I'm in those sort of situations. But it was fun. I met people and in person and had a good time, and there's a lot of camaraderie in our division, our Shake Shack division. We took a division photo afterwards and things like that. We got to see the other draft board of the live draft that was going on. They were auctioning stuff off. It was fun. It was fun. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I was able to do it. In fact, in all my years playing fantasy football since the late 90s, that was the only live draft in person with people that I've ever done. How about that?
That's interesting. They're fun. I did Atlanta last year, and I didn't know a single person when I was going in, so that was more weird. At least this time, I kind of have a few people I've interacted with on Twitter. Obviously talked to Jeff, Joe Bond, and all them, but there's a few other people I'm going to be seeing there that I've been talking to on Twitter. So it'll be good. It'll be fun.
I will say too, I made folks aware in the New York draft of some of the stuff that I have, between my ears and, with being autistic and stuff and what it might look like in the room. And they're really, really, really nice. In fact, JB, coach, fantasy coaches? No, it's not. It's Coach JB. I don't know. He's from the New York area. I'm blanking. He's a great guy. And, if I'm not telling tales out of school, like DM me on the side and was like, if if something's going wrong and like you're tight or anxious or whatever, just find me, and and I think I like thinking about that because if you followed me on Twitter lately, I've had some really tough mental health stretches, like chunks of days here and there in the last like couple months, and really was souring on fantasy football and the community and fellow content creators, and certainly said things about it, and it's important to remember the positives about it too. And what I've tried to do now is do a little bit of a detox. I'm consuming less content and sort of pared down the people I'm following on Twitter to like the people I know are like nice and decent people and don't do like the smart ass stuff. I'll mute some more Twitter conversations and that sort of thing. Just little things you need to do to kind of like, at least I need to do to keep the sanity. Where can you find me on Twitter? Being crabby and cranky at ffjunkie _ writing rankings and articles going for 2. I did that one Fantasy Pros article. I'm not going to do one for July. I don't know about August. It just life stuff, job search, health insurance. I just don't have the time to do that. But I will be dropping on going for 2 later, closer to kickoff. Dynasty Guys Guide to Redraft Sleepers. So keep an eye out for that. Going for 2 has a pop in Discord, lots of Scott Fishbowl mocks in there. I don't know if we're up to over 1,000 people in the Discord or something. I forget, but yeah, and lots of free content and trade advice and banter. And this show has a channel, and other shows have a channel. We have a show for you just about every night or day of the week. So please make sure that you're subscribed here on Going for 2 Live. And of course, lots of great stuff on the website for DFS, Redraft, Dynasty, Best Ball, all that stuff. All right.
So 2,000 members, 2,132.
There you go. How about that? On and popping. All right. So that'll do it for us. That's a wrap. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And
go Braves.